Hey everyone, Angelo here. Welcome to another design tutorial. Today we're going to be discussing how to create your own custom coaster in Adobe InDesign. But more specifically, I'm going to show you how to use the Type on a Path tool. This tool will allow you to type on circular shapes, much like you see here on my screen. It also allows you to type on paths or lines, or if you were using the pen tool to create a custom shape or wave, you can type on that as well. But today we're going to focus mainly on creating a retro themed coaster, much like you see here on my screen. So let's get started. Before we go any further, I want to show you the document setup. So I did download a template with all the measurements, as you can see here. Let me just turn these layers off. So this is the template I'm working off of. If you were actually printing this, this is what you would want to work off of, just as a safety net in terms of not going outside of certain boundaries for printing purposes. I will link this template where you can download it in my blog in this tutorial, so keep an eye on that. But before we go any further, you can, once you download this template, you can just work right off that same template. You don't have to, create another document and then copy and paste this information over. So it's, if I go to File and Document Setup, this document specifically is 3.88 inches by 3.88 inches. And I've created 3 pages here. And margins, I've turned them off. You don't really need margins when you're designing a coaster, so I'm just going to hit cancel and we can get started. So just going back to these layers here and turning off that template measurements, that is the finished product, and that's what we're going to accomplish today. So I've set up a third page here, and let's go ahead and get started. I think we'll do the black version. I've created 2 here, a black and a red. And so the first thing I do want to do is put this layer back on. And I want to work off the coaster layer, so I have that clicked. And we're going to draw out an ellipse shape that will become essentially the shape of our coaster. Okay, so I'm going to click on the ellipse. So if you're, by default, it'll be on the rectangle frame tool. So just click, hold, and select the ellipse. And instead of dragging out a shape, just click on the page, and we're going to put in these dimensions right here, 3.6209 by 3.6209. Okay, and if I hit OK, I'll just give that a color fill. I'll do the black there. And I'm going to use my alignment options up here in my control panel, and I'm going to align it to the page, horizontal and vertical centers. And what you see I've done there is I've created an ellipse that goes right around what is the safety zone of this template. Anything outside, or once you start getting into this red area, chances are it's going to be removed. It'll be cut off in the printing process. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my layers, and let's hide the template and lock the coaster. So I can't move that coaster now, and we can start building our type and our elements on the coaster. So let's do that. I'm gonna click type, go to my ellipse tool again, and while holding shift, I'm gonna draw out this time a box. And for reference point, I'm just gonna give it a stroke, white stroke for now. Okay, that is maybe 1/2 inch, okay, or 1/2 point. This will be our reference point when we're typing our text. Okay, so I'm going to again make it centered, aligned, and let's just make that a little bit bigger and do the same thing. Okay, so something like that is fine. And this is where we're going to start using the Type on a Path tool. Okay, so as you can see here, I have mine accessed, but as a default, it's gonna default to the regular Type tool. Go ahead and click and hold and select Type on a Path, or Shift T as a shortcut. And I'm gonna hover. I'm gonna zoom in here. I'm gonna hover over this area here where my path is, and see that little plus sign there? Once you see that plus sign, go ahead and click, and now I can type in my text here. So as a reference, as the same up top, and just say let's do all capitals actually, the greatest the world's greatest root beer. Greatest root beer. I'll zoom back out here just to show you where we're at. So obviously that's not centered, right? And you wouldn't want to have text aligned that way. So I'm just going to double click, and then select the text, and I want to align it centrally, okay? Like align the type, and still that doesn't help us. So what I want to do now is go back to my selection tool, and I have some handles here, some anchors. And the first thing I want to do, see these two up here? There's two. Now they're very finicky, so you want to make sure that once you see that icon with the arrow with the line there, once you see that, go ahead and click one and drag it to the left handle, drag this one to this handle, and there you go. Now it's completely centered on our coaster. Now I don't like the type here. I've created a custom paragraph style, so I'm going to select my text here, and I'm going to go to basic paragraphs, and this is going to be, I'm using Brothers OT bold. It's a very cool retro looking font, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. Now right now this type is sitting on the baseline of that path, okay, and I want to change that. So with your text still selected, go up to Object, go to Type on a path, and let's click Options. We want the effect to still be rainbow, but instead of baseline alignment, let's change it to Ascender, okay? You can see now the type is under my path, and that's okay. That white border that we have there, we're just using that as a guide. I'm gonna remove that once we're done here. Okay, so I'm gonna hit OK. And what I wanna do now, actually I can remove that now. So I'm gonna click, because now I know how it looks. So I'm gonna click that, and let's take the stroke off, okay? So I'm gonna click this text frame. Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna do Command C, or go up to Edit, Copy, and then go Edit, Paste in Place. And what that does is just creates another copy of it placed right on the original. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold Shift, go up to the top right hand corner of my text frame, and rotate it 180 degrees. So you have a perfect circular shape there with your text. The only problem is the text is now upside down on the bottom one. So let's go ahead and click that, double click, select, and let's go back to Type and Type on a path and Options. And now instead of Ascender, we want Descender, and we want to flip this text, okay? Because we don't want it to be upside down. So now what I've done is I've changed the alignment to Descender, and I flipped it. So to see that little check there, make sure that you check that to flip the text, and make sure your preview button is on to see the changes that you're making in real time. So go ahead and hit OK. And there you go. That's a cool way of setting up a circular badge looking retro coaster using the Type on a path tool. Now what I've done here is I created another one underneath. So let's go ahead and try that out now. So let's create another ellipse frame. Hold your Shift key while dragging out a box. Again, I'm just going to put a stroke on this for a temporary moment. Change it to half. Okay, and let's go ahead and align that vertically and horizontal centers. Let's hold Shift and bring it in just a little bit more, something like that. No, maybe no. Let's try something. We can always adjust that after. Okay, so maybe a little bit less. Same thing, let's go to Type on a path and click on your path. Once you see that plus sign, and go ahead, and this time I said brewed in the heart of Detroit. Highlight the text, so select it, and go up to your text alignments, your type alignments, and right now it's left justified, so let's just make it centered. Go to your selection tool and remember the handles here, so let's go ahead and bring that out. Actually, let's bring this one to the top. Okay, and just bring these guys to the left and bring this one to the right. Now I know, look at it, now it's perfectly centered on this circular ellipse shape that I've created. Again, select the text. I'm going to go back to my paragraph styles, and this one I've created is also Brothers, but instead of bold, it's regular, and it's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to click that. And let's go back to the type on a path options, and let's make it, instead of baseline, ascender. Okay, and you don't have to flip this because that's good, so hit OK. Now, I just want to see, let's take that guide off. Okay, so I'm just going to make this, just going to make this box a little bit bigger and align it that way. I'm just going to update this so it's back to the regular size there. That's much better. Okay, so I'm going to click this, Command C, and then paste in place. Hold your Shift key and rotate that box 180 degrees. We're going to double click, select the text there, go back to type on a path, options. Instead of ascender, we want descender, and we want to flip that text so it's reading normally instead of being upside down orientation. Okay, so go ahead and hit OK, and there you go. Now you might have to maneuver some of this type because it looks like there's more space up here, so you just have to play around with that. Maybe click on it, maybe move the box up one, or even better, just click this, and then you play with the shift, the baseline shift. So shift option and then the up arrow, and do the same thing here, something like that. Okay, so play around and see what works best, but there's a good starting point. Now let's go ahead and put that main logo inside our coaster. Okay, so I'm gonna put my guides on, go to my regular type tool, drag out a box, and let's bring it somewhere in here. And this is called Cass, so it's Cass root beer, a play on words for, there's a road in Detroit called Cass Avenue, so that's where I kind of made this up. I'm gonna go back to my paragraph styles, and this is called main logo, so you can see it, the type I'm using is Casey, and it's 80 points, so let's go ahead and click that. And one thing I really like to do is I make a copy of this. I hold Option and drag out another copy and just leave it on my pasteboard. Reason being is when I am aligning this into my coaster, I like doing it as a create outline, so a non-editable text. And I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to go to Object, Type, and then Create Outlines. Okay, what that does is I can't go in here and edit this text anymore, but it does make the text frame nice and snug right to my word cast. So if I'm editing this and I want to make it exactly centered to my coaster or my page, it does it in a better way than if it was not in Create Outlines, because sometimes the text frame is a little bit off and it'll center it with the text frame rather than the word, if you know what I mean. Okay, so now I know for sure this is definitely centered in this coaster. Okay, so I did click on it. Let's go click on that and then just rotate it maybe like 10 degrees or so and move it up a bit. And then if you go up to here, I also made a cool text box like so. Let's go down here and do the same thing. And I'm going to just say root beer, all in caps, root beer, 2 words, and go back to my paragraph styles. And this one is Brothers. Again, going back to Brothers, I really do like this typeface, and it's super slant, so it's a little bit slanted, which gives it a cool look as well. Double click on one of the corners of the text frame, and what that does is it makes it snug around your type as well. Again, I'm just going to make another copy and then do create outlines, which a shortcut for that is Shift Command O. Bring it onto my page here, and you just don't put this in arbitrarily. What I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe grab a guide and snap it to the A here, and do the same thing and bring it to the maybe right there, the side of the S, and then I'm going to rotate this also 10 degrees. And then I'm just going to use my right and left arrow key to line up that R to the guide that I made. Let's do that. I'm just going to hold Shift and drag it a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to maybe hold Shift and then drag this one so it's on that guide as well. Something like that maybe. And then I'll bring it maybe up one. Good. So that's a good package now. What I do is I click on the cast, hold Shift, and click on root beer, Command G, and if I'm ever moving this around, I'm moving them together and not separately. Okay, so if I wanted to rotate them, I could just rotate them a little bit more together. Okay, and I'm going to bring that down a bit, and now let's just bring in our last piece here, which is this icon of the root beer and that ray of light, so to speak. So I'm going to go to my CC libraries, and I've added both of them here. So let's go ahead and start with the root beer shake. Drag that on, make a little box, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold Shift and Option and shrink that down just a bit for now. I'm going to center it right in our coaster. I'm going to bring in the rays, and I'm going to drop that in. Might be huge. Let's see. Oops, there it is. So I'm going to drag and make a little version of that. And let's make that smaller. I'm going to send it to the back, so I'm going to hold Command in the square bracket to push it back. That's a shortcut for object send to back or send backwards. Is hold your Command or Control key on a PC and use your square brackets. If there's multiple layers, just keep hitting the square brackets and it'll just keep going back in order. So maybe something like that. I'm going to bring it up. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to cheat this to equal that space. How's that look? Too close to the type, so I'm going to click that, hold Shift, click that, bring it down. Something like that. And then you can play around with this and see what looks best. But what we've done there is basically create a coaster using the Type on a Path tool, which is great for logo design too. Mostly these same techniques can be used in Illustrator, but just know that you have the option to create things like this in InDesign as well. So if I was exporting this, I would just go up to File, Export, and then I would export it as a PNG with the background removed, or you can save it as a print PDF, and that's what essentially you would send to the printer if you were printing this. Okay, so that is it for today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, look for the link to that template in the blog that will be released with this tutorial. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and look for my work in the next coming weeks, more tutorials to come. So hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.